Hello everybody, and welcome to a viewer's guide to the 2025 Mania 4K World Cup. I'm your host SunApple, alongside my co-host Dynascape. And in this video series, week by week, we'll be covering exciting matchups, doing deep dives into the minds of teams, and providing a recap so that players of any skill level can learn something new or valuable. For this week's video, we'll be covering the qualifier results weekend by explaining what's changed from last year's Mappool structure, and we'll take a look at a few featured teams that qualified. From slashing entire Mappool category to surprising seed switch-ups, this year's Mania 4K World Cup is building up to become one of the most thrilling years yet. Let's go over to Dynascape to see what's changed since last year's tournament.
If you've checked out the qualifier maps from last week, watched the seeding reveal stream over the weekend, or perused through the pool to see what awesome OSU originals were cooked up for this week, you might have noticed something amiss. This year's map pools do not feature a slider velocity slot, or SV for short. There were a couple of factors involved in this big decision, so we'll summarize them concisely here. Firstly, an undeniable uptick in side reads from last year's tournament has led poolers to believe that teams feel less enthusiastic about practicing these types of maps overall compared to previous years. Second, it's always been awkward to balance a skill set that is completely decorrelated from non-SV skill sets, which also leads teams to have to spend 1 or 2 slots for it as well. Lastly, the head map pooler for SV's Paturages is taking a break and stepping down from coordinating. We'd like to thank him for his service over the years. If you're interested in reading more about this topic, Paturages released a retrospective document that goes in depth about the removal of SV and looks towards the future of the category. It's a quick 5-minute read that offers rare insight from a lead member in the Mania tournament community. The link will be in the description below. With the absence of SVs in the pool comes the need to fill the slots they've left behind. The rework of the win condition, which is now based on a more linearly scaling map count, means that the structure of the pool each round is different from last year in some way or another. It's a bit difficult to put into words. So, for the visual learners out there, we have the tables from the MWC 4K 2025 Changes document on the screen. The link will be in the description below if you wish to read it for yourself. As you can see, in the round of 16 you will need 1 less map win to secure the set, 5 down from 6. And in the semifinals you will also need 1 less map win compared to last year, 6 down from 7. For the first to 5 pools, the SV slots have moved over to a Rice Core-Jack and Hybrid pick. For the first to 6 pools, instead of SV, you'll see an extra jump stream map as well as another long note wildcard available. Lastly, in the finals and grand finals, previous SV slots are used for a mixed Rice or Tech pick, plus another hybrid map. A lot of things have changed, I know, and change is scary, and sometimes confusing. So, if you have any questions, let us know in the comments below. With all of that past us, we can finally highlight some of the teams that we think have fascinating storylines to follow throughout the tournament. Take it away, SunApple.
Now it's time to talk about the qualifier results themselves. Every year, new countries join MWC to compete for a slot in the bracket stage. However, they often fail to meet that expectation and are eliminated during qualifiers. Guatemala, on the other hand, has managed to break this curse by placing 29th in their first year playing. I feel like what's allowed this team to surpass expectations was the inclusion of multiple high-level players, such as their captain Max Hulini, who's a well-known tournament player with splendid accuracy ability, and whose skills stay consistent throughout the entirety of any tournament they play in. Additionally, they've supported the super physical player in CRZ Miyako, who's been able to achieve Epsilon and has multiple insane Rice accuracy plays, such as their number 11 score on Gemini Enjoy My Life. Alongside them are 2 newcomers to the tournament scene, Baboso de Udiel and Hoshiteru, who have been the 3rd man on the squad, managing to keep up just enough to qualify. Taking a deeper dive into the qualifier results, it appears as though they selected the same 3 players throughout the entirety of their lobby. This indicates a bit of a flexibility issue and is a common problem that many new countries face, just because they lack a full roster. However, I do believe that Guatemala may be able to push this in the round of 32, since the map pools will be slightly easier. And if they are able to, then I feel like they can at least take a point and possibly a series from a similarly matched team. But that's for us to find out this weekend.
This year's award for the biggest glow up goes to Peru, who jumped up from an almost relegated 31st seed to a comfortable mid seed at number 20. With a perfect blend of experience and new blood, their harmonious lineup looks to prove that they can once again hang with the top 16 and overtake any team that underestimates them. Spearheading the charge is Dendro, who hasn't seen formal MWC action since 2022. As one of the top individual performers in qualifiers, they look to take the lead in any map with returning players Anku and Yokmao, the former Peruvian captain from MWC 4K 2023. Make a note of this veteran core, as this is probably going to be the trio lineup for most map types. Eager to support the team for the first time this year is Zingo Tripas, Eric 2, and Sophie Decoy. Each of these three players are capable of flexing in as a third man in various categories. Consistently a menacing team when their backs are put to the wall in losers bracket, don't discount them at the start. They have a classic South American showdown in the round of 32 against Brazil, and with the way things are looking, many people may not realize that it should be a closer match than the seeds depict. Speaking of that match, it brings us to our next team under the lens.
Brazil, a team with a very storied history. They've been consistently top 8 in the World Cup for nearly a decade up until recently. Throughout the years, the team has changed a lot, but even so, they had always kept their core roster, which kept them among the elite. However, this year is a pivotal moment for them, because the only returning player is Milwaukee, a lesser known but still stellar rice accuracy player. Many people, myself included, were counting them out, assuming this was going to be another year where Brazil just continues to fall down in seeding, far from the levels of their former glory. However, surprisingly enough, this wasn't true. While they weren't able to achieve top 8 like they did in the past, they managed to achieve around the same seeding as last year, qualifying at seed 13th, even without players like Silly Fangirl or Le Marcinio. This fact is quite surprising considering they had so many changes, but if we look at the stats, it's evident that this team still has some fire in their eyes. Their scores show that their strongest skill set is Rice, where they've been able to consistently overperform expectations on any map type, being especially clean on the simpler picks. Their LNO hybrids are a bit lacking, but we've seen a lot of teams go far just being able to perform on one skill set. Looking at you 2022 Team USA. So I do believe there's a chance for this team to be able to cause some upsets and should be a team to watch for this year.
2024 for Indonesia was historically their worst placing in the entirety of MWC, spanning back to 2014. The thing is, they didn't necessarily do bad with what they were given. For a team that quite literally had to rebuild from the ground up, they almost beat a higher seeded Hong Kong in a nail-biting tiebreaker. After getting iced out through a DQ in losers round 1, they managed to take a point off of the eventual silver medalist China, who wandered over to the losers bracket early. With fans heartbroken about last year, many wondered if this team could ever return to the glory they seized just a year before, third place with the country's most stacked team ever seen. Well, it's safe to say that the Indonesian player base may not have to wait for much longer. The playmakers from Indonesia's mythical 2023 run have returned and are ready to take on anyone and everyone. Albert, Rezared, and team captain Ray are in this year's lineup and look to recreate the run they had 2 years ago with Fire, One Bite, and newcomer LN/hybrid specialist Yeah. While their seed may seem relatively low at 11th, the keen-eyed may notice that both Albert and Rezared did not participate for the qualifier weekend, leading us to believe that they might be anywhere from slightly to severely underrepresented. Watch out for them closely, because at full strength, they're a team that everyone should shiver at the thought of facing.
In general, year by year, teams don't move much in their seedings, and if they do, commonly it's as a result of major switch-ups in their roster. This year we're actually seeing a mix-up, with a team who has improved a whole 10 placements by only changing one player in their roster. This team, of course, is Hong Kong, who achieved 4th place overall in the qualifiers. If you're like me, you realize that a team like Hong Kong, which has been around the top 16 range for the past few years, got 4th. You probably looked at the roster, saw a bunch of new names, and thought, oh, they just got a lot of new talent. But funny enough, all these new names are just name changes, and the only actual roster change was replacing Recesis with Pomful. Some might pin the improvement on the additional Pomful, whose skills were shown in the 4-digit Mania World Cup, with their impeccable early game accuracy. But surprisingly enough, they didn't even play qualifiers. So, what's different this time around? How did they improve so much over the last year? Very often, commentators joke about wanting to clone a certain player to make a super team. But looking at these qualifier scores, it almost seems like they did that with Quotient, the star player for Hong Kong in the past, because everyone on this team is doing just as well, if not surpassing them. Especially Koshpin and Fubuki fan, who are trading top scores over and over in the hybrids and rice. And while, on average, this may mean that the team's LN skills would be weaker, Minato Aquafan 69 has stepped up their game as well by improving their consistency by being able to 990k any LN map thrown at them. This lineup, who were originally just thought of as another above average Asian team, has become a scary powerhouse that will destroy anyone who gets in their way. It's clear that they have dedicated all year for this moment, but we'll just have to see if their practice paid off later on.
It wouldn't be a featured list without shining the spotlight on our top performer this qualifier weekend, China. This team showed absolute consistency on each of the 7 maps, placing no lower than 4th on any of them. Quite the impressive feat considering they eked out the usual contenders for the top seed, South Korea, who placed 3rd, and the United States, who placed 2nd. China has always carried this certain mystique, something you wouldn't expect from a country that habitually places in the top half of the MWC. Every year they seem to dig deep and field experienced mania players with new faces from other VSRGs. This edition of MWC is no different, as the team features 3 returning players from last year's team: Rice Specialist I Don't Know What High, and all-rounders GB Parasol Tree and Dawn X. The part many people are excited for is seeing what the new crew can do. Xiaojiao Junxi didn't see any play this weekend, so for now their specialty on the team remains a mystery. WOM2436 is a former Malady player that dominates the field when it comes to Rice and hybrid maps. Last but not least, this year's team captain FoMelt1 looks to lead China to their first MWC victory through their prowess on LN and hybrids. Last year was China's best year in the MWC, but it didn't start how many would expect. After seeding 8th through qualifiers, they were handed an almost death sentence, losing to seed 9 Malaysia in a close match in the round of 16. From then on though, they were an unstoppable force. Playing an MWC record of 10 matches throughout the entire tournament, China blazed through the losers bracket, beating a variety of teams including Japan, Chile, podium contenders South Korea, and a peaking Thailand team before finally succumbing to the United States in the grand finals. These hopeful 6 look to dismantle the iron grip that the US has had on this tournament for so long, and it may be the best shot anyone has in denying the three-peat. With such a strong and malleable roster showing that they can size up against any of the greats of Osumania, China looks to swing at the king and take the crown.
Alright, and that is going to be it for this week's recap. Congratulations once again to all teams who qualified. Here is the bracket for the round 32. Wow, some of these matchups look very spicy. Matches that I would recommend looking out for are Spain vs Taiwan, Brazil vs Peru, Malaysia vs Poland, and especially France vs Philippines. All these teams are pretty close in the early game portions of qualifier, and I think we may see an upset or two depending on how they feel about the pools. But to wrap it all up, thank y'all so much for watching, and stay tuned for next week's recap of the Osumania 4K World Cup. Bye bye!